Sometimes players surpass expectations. Sometimes they don't reach those expectations. Let's talk way too early non-rookie Texans boom or bust candidates in 2025 in another live edition of The Locker Room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's The Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock.
Boom or bust candidates for 2025. We've talked about rookies a lot. And now let's just focus on the guys that are on the roster. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can see me, hear me here throughout the week, 10:30 p.m., also on SNL 4 o'clock with Cody Stutes. We should get a look at these rookies next week. We'll also hear from D'Amico Ryans. So we got some decent content coming our way. And this stream should take place during a nice little NBA game as well between Denver and Clippers. Man, that Knicks game was crazy earlier today too. But we will we'll keep an eye on that. Might have a little wage on it as well. Let's look at the history of D'Amico Ryans and Caserio, though. And again, I wanted to focus on guys on the roster because we've talked so much about rookies. But guys who have surpassed expectations and guys who have come up short in the 2 years of the D'Amico Ryans, Nick Caserio era. And we'll start with the good stuff. The good news. Some people are good news folks. Some people are bad news folks. What do you want to know? We'll start with the good from the D'Amico Caserio era. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Steve, how you living? Cebu, hello. Mr. Hi, hello. Frank Z, hello. HDAV on the soup. How you doing, my friend? You ain't never hate. Swarm. And then Average Joe, Jared, etc. But let's start with the pleasant surprises in 2003, year one of D'Amico Ryans. And I think you can put CJ Stroud on this list. I know that there was a debate before CJ Stroud was selected. Bryce or CJ, I was on the Bryce end of things, but when a guy has one of the most historically impressive seasons for a rookie in NFL history, he's definitely on the list. But I would say the pleasant surprises in year one with D'Amico were Stroud, Nico Collins, who proved his worth. Tank Dell, before he got hurt, was performing at a high level. George Fant, you didn't anticipate him being a solid right tackle. Some still miss him to this day. His name comes up quite often. Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman was a guy who had a hell of a season, ended up leaving, but he did his thing. Jonathan Grenard, another guy that went to Minnesota with Cashman. Devin Singletary was solid. And then I know that he's a goofball. I know he's kind of a loose cannon, but Steven Nelson, they don't do what they did without Steven Nelson. And there were a lot of pleasant surprises for D'Amico Ryans in 2023. Guys that maybe were getting slept on that ended up surpassing expectations. Guys that were already here before he got there, guys that were rookies, guys that were veterans that arrived and played well, guys that he developed. Every area there, it was a pleasant surprise in bulk. It was Costco-like bulk when it came to the pleasant surprises for D'Amico and Caserio in 2023. Last year, not as many. Now, you had some guys that elevated their play to where they became elite caliber guys like Will Anderson and Derek Stingley. And Nico did what Nico did, but it really wasn't a surprise. But in 2004, I would say there were three pleasant surprises that stuck out the most and elevated their play. And that one was a rookie, one was a second-year guy, and there were actually two rookies. And I would say Kamari Lassiter went from Can he line up outside? You bet your ass he can line up outside. And oh, by the way, he's not competing with anybody in camp. Kalen Bullock, can he be an every down safety? He was one of the better young safeties in the league. And then Henry To'oTo'o, who nobody was really talking about, he filled in nicely in the absence of Christian Harris. So those were your pleasant surprises in 2024. Henry To'oTo'o, Lassiter, and Bullock. And if I miss anyone, just let me know in the chat if there's someone that I'm missing. Then you have the high expectations and the underachieving. That's another section there. And I think there were only two in 2023. The year in 2023, when we had all those guys that were pleasant surprises, I think there were only two guys, and they were both second-year guys. And both of their last names start with P, and that would be Jalen Petrie coming off his rookie season, year two, benched, kind of exposed as a guy that's not a traditional safety in this system. They later on found a good role for him, and I think you can actually put him in the pleasant surprise list of 2024 too, just based on the role, but it wasn't like a massive expectations. And then Dameon Pierce. And there was a lot of talk about the system and all that type of stuff. And then kind of the same thing happened in 2024, although the expectations had kind of been channeled. And then we go to 2024, high expectations to low. This is a crowded group, and it's all on one side of the rock. And one of the names kind of generates a lot of emotion, rightfully so. The whole offensive line, Dalton Schultz and CJ Stroud. You at the very least thought Dalton Schultz would be solid. Dalton Schultz established himself, at least in this chat, and at least in my inboxes, as perhaps the most despised player on the Houston Texans roster at the moment. Maybe not all his fault. Maybe he was asked to do some stuff that he shouldn't, but Dalton Schultz was on the disappointment last year. The whole offensive line, no one excluded from that. And then CJ Stroud, just based on the expectations that he set up and not really controlling what he could control as well as he did, which is something that he kind of acknowledged. And again, that's based on the expectations. So that's kind of setting the scene for the first 2 years of what this exercise has looked like with the results in front of us based on what we thought before and what we thought after as we get into this boomer bust thing. In the chat, Cebu says he would add Petrie at nickel. I think that's fair. Last year, that was a pleasant surprise. So I think that's good. Rob says, I think the Steven Nelson Caserio drama forced Nick to double down on secondary last year in the draft. They couldn't let Steven be right. Steven was washed by the end of the year. I mean, let's just be honest. He was good, and he battled, and he held it down when Stingley was out. And I've always been very complimentary of, despite him being a loon job, how good he was. He was washed by the end of the year. They got every ounce of football that Steven Nelson had left. And I know he wants to deny it and stuff. And he'll say, that last year he didn't want to play football because it wasn't enough money. Then he did want to play, that he didn't. And next thing you know, he found himself kind of ring chasing on Kansas City's practice squad. So I don't think it forced him to do anything. I think they needed to get younger at corner anyways. I think Steven Nelson gave them every ounce of everything he had, and they knew that they had to improve at the position. And they did with Kamari Lassiter. Kamari Lassiter is a better player than Steven Nelson at this point. So, yeah, I don't think he really forced it. Giovanni, on cue. This is a very common thing. Schultz is a bum. Mr. High, Schultz is a bum. But yeah, so not a big Schultz. Schultz is not the most popular guy around here. I think Schultz wants to prove himself next season so he gets signed somewhere. Perhaps so. This is basically the final year of Schultz's deal. I know it says that there's 2 years remaining, but we're kind of in the territory now where they're not paying Dalton Schultz $11 million to play football 2 more years. They have no choice 1 more year because the first 2 were essentially guaranteed. They have no choice. Will Dalton Schultz appear on the boomer bust list? Stay tuned. But we'll get into this now, and we'll start with the potential busts. And I want y'all to tell me if you think that any of these guys will not reach the expectations that are laid out for them. There's 4 guys that we'll get into, but let's start with the most important guy on the list, and that's the quarterback. It's all about the quarterback. A wise man once told me, Landry, you can talk all this crap about football, but at the end of the day, the game is about the quarterback. CJ Stroud bounced back in year 3. Boom or bust. I'm going boom here. And I think because of the defense that they have, because of what that defense is going to provide, because of the weapons on offense that they've provided, and the knowledge that they can't ask CJ Stroud to do what he did last year and was asked to do last year, I think CJ Stroud is a boom. Does that mean that he's statistically going to be as good as he was a couple of years ago? The stats, actually, you can make a case in some areas were kind of comparable. But I think CJ Stroud, and he's shown this ability even last year when he was having a quote down year based on the standards he set. And he showed it the year before. He's got an ability to have a sense of the moment to when he needs to make plays, he makes the plays. And I think they're going to turn CJ Stroud into that type of guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a game manager like a Brock Purdy, but they between the defense and at least actively trying to change his surroundings, they've at least eliminated the CJ Stroud saves all butts notion. So while CJ Stroud is coming off that year last year, do I expect CJ Stroud to lead the league in passing yards? No. I expect him to lead the league in touchdown passes? No. But I think that CJ Stroud is going to be put in position. And most importantly, I think CJ Stroud is beyond capable of, whether it's week 1 last year against Indianapolis after the 2-minute warning, completing the pass to Nico Collins on 3rd and 10, or having to make a play to extend a drive on 3rd down when he faces a little bit of pressure. I believe CJ Stroud is going to be able to do that. And I think the defense is going to be so good that the rewards and the stakes are going to be higher. And I think he's going to be ready for the moment. So I'm going boom when it comes to CJ Stroud. I am saying that is very much alive, and I'm buying that stock. So I'm buying every single ounce of the CJ Stroud. Boom, that's alive. So that's where I'm at with CJ. Now let's get into the bust watch, though. The bust watch is interesting because you're not predicting it, but you're just you're acknowledging that every year you feel really good about someone and then they kind of disappoint you. And unfortunately, you're talking about guys who are coming off of good years. But as expectations change, sometimes as they put their money where their mouth is and maybe the expectations increase a little bit, sometimes maybe the league catches up to you, like we saw with Bobby Slowick. And Bobby Slowick could have easily been on the top of that list as far as disappointments. Bobby Slowick was terrible last year. He probably could have his own section. And that was the ultimate sophomore slump. But the bust list is Jalen Petrie, Azeez Al-Shire, Henry To'oTo'o, Kamari Lassiter, and Kalen Bullock. Is there anyone on this list that you could see busting? I would say no to Kalen Bullock, although I do think that if they can get a rotation to kind of limit what you ask him to do and allow his strengths, him to be fresh for his strengths, passing downs, I think that would be nice. Kamari Lassiter, look, whenever you're lining up opposite of Derek Stingley, you're going to get challenged more than most corners. There's going to be some highs and lows, but I don't anticipate Kamari Lassiter having a bad sophomore second season like we've seen from, like, for example, Jalen Petrie. So I'm not buying that. Henry To'oTo'o is an interesting one because I don't know that Henry's going to be asked to do as much as he did last year. I said this earlier. Christian Harris is hopefully going to be back healthy. And I think To'o had a nice season last year, but a lot of it was just taking advantage of the opportunity that was created because Christian Harris, player with a little bit more upside, was on the sidelines. So does that mean that I think Henry To'o is all of a sudden going to be playing 20% of the snaps? No, I think he's a solid rotational guy. It could end up being almost like a platoon, but he's going to be fresh. So I don't think Henry To'o falls off at all. I think he's the ultimate professional that's going to control what he can control. And they got a few more bodies at linebacker. So no. So 0 for 3 there on the bust watch. Azeez Al-Shaair. Look, we saw him have some really good moments last year. And that game against Kansas City was pretty ugly. It's kind of the last time that we saw him. Now, part of the reason that it looks so bad is because if you're going to ask him to cover tight ends, especially Travis Kelce, even the ghost of Travis Kelce, it's not going to go well. That's why they have Jalen Petrie. That's why they have more guys that can line up inside. And once they lost Petrie and Ward, they were asking Azeez Al-Shaair to do stuff that he should not be doing, and you should not be asking him to do. But I would keep an eye on Azeez, and I wonder what Christian Harris looks like. It would not shock me to see Christian Harris as the top linebacker on this team. So there's kind of a spoiler alert there as to a future boom in this exercise here in the locker room. Number one source for Texans digital content. Fifth Ward says Christian Harris was a bust. I disagree that Christian Harris was a bust. Christian Harris wasn't healthy. So I wouldn't say he's a bust. I would say he's got to stay on the field. But you haven't lost any hope. And I know D'Amico and them haven't, as to what type of impact Christian Harris could potentially make for the Texans if he's on the football field. And maybe that's way too big of an if. So there is that. But it was definitely disappointing, but it wasn't based on what he actually did. And then you have Jalen Petrie. I think we got to keep an eye on Jalen Petrie. Really high on Jalen Petrie year 2, not good. Meh, year 3, okay. What does Jalen Petrie look like? What does this role look like, especially once they get the pieces? I would say Jalen Petrie's near the top of this list potentially as an interesting investment, because I think Jalen Petrie's a good player. They think Jalen Petrie's one of the better nickels in the league. So that tells you how much they're going to be depending on him. What does that look like? I think there's bust watch with Jalen Petrie. There's definitely bust watch with him. On the chat, Youssef says Ladarius Henderson, boomer bust. I mean, what about him? Kay Adams got asked about him yesterday. I don't really have very many thoughts about Ladarius Henderson, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we'll see. I would be surprised I'll be surprised to see what he looks like or doesn't. 2 foot surgeries is nothing to yawn at, and he was a 6th-round pick. So I don't know where that is coming from with the Ladarius Henderson thing. Another bust to keep an eye on, and this is a sensitive subject for Cody Stutes. He'll get pretty fired up and hot and bothered when you mention this name. And quite frankly, a lot of Texans fans will too. One of the most successful players in franchise history that, quite frankly, at the end of last year, there were times when he just flat out stunk and he wasn't getting the job done. And that's Ka'imi Fairbairn. Sometimes when it leaves a kicker, it just leaves a kicker. Once he starts missing kicks, you look up, and every time you look up, he's shanking a kick. Last year, after the Texans' best drive of the season against the Chiefs, you see Ka'imi Fairbairn. He's sitting there. He's shivering. He's looking miserable, looking like he doesn't want to be in the cold. I can kind of relate to that, but I don't have to kick footballs, and I also don't have that big-ass heater next to me. He misses the extra point, kind of sucks the life out of what was the best drive of the year. Had a couple of missed field goals, had the big miss against the Titans. I mean, does Ka'imi, last year he kicked better than he ever has in camp, and then he started out well, and he kind of spoiled them with 50-plus yard field goals. Are we seeing the beginning of kind of the fall off with Fairbairn? I'm not saying that that's something that I would bet on, but I mean, it seems to be that that's the way that stuff happens whenever kickers just start falling off. So there's definitely a bust watch with Ka'imi Fairbairn. Are we going to see it in camp? Is there going to be signs of it? Maybe, but this is something to really, really keep an eye on. Is he going to snap out of it? Is he going to move on? Or is kicking going to be a problem for the Texans? So that's a serious bust watch. Boom. And I know I'm going to get killed in the chat for this. I think Dalton Schultz might be useful this year. And this is based on expectations. The expectations are low. Jalen Petrie now is looked at as not a guy who D'Amico found a spot for. Jalen Petrie's now looked at as, okay, this guy's got to be one of the top nickels in the league now. Because when you start investing, that's kind of how it works. It's the piece of the pie, it's the chunk. That's what the expectation is for now for Jalen Petrie. It's not just a luxury. It's not a pleasant surprise. It's a, hey, they think this guy's one of the best nickels in the league. What does that look like? So that's why you put him on bus watch. Dalton Schultz, I don't think Dalton Schultz is going to catch 65, 70 balls. But I also don't think Nick Caley's going to ask Dalton Schultz to sit there and basically play left tackle or right tackle. So I could see Dalton Schultz catching 40, 50 balls. He's a useful player if you use him right. He wasn't used right. And the other thing is, like someone said earlier, if you look at Dalton Schultz in contract years, he's been pretty good. Did pretty well in Dallas when his contract was going to expire. Signed the 1-year deal here. And they liked it enough to basically give him 2 years guaranteed and basically at the price of the franchise tag of the tight end position. Now he's just kind of dismissed as like some sort of scrub. And I understand why. He sucked last year. He wasn't good. He didn't perform well and he didn't play good. But now the expectations are so low that if Dalton Schultz goes out there and he's catching, 4 touchdowns, 50 balls, and the guys below him are developing, he's not a long-term guy, but I'll buy the stock. It's cheap. It's penny stock. So here's a copper penny. I'll take 10 shares of Dalton Schultz boom stock. Why not? They're not going to ask him to do what he did. I can see you already hating on that. Next boom is Christian Harris. Last year, we had a lot of hope for Christian Harris. Didn't work out, was never healthy. They never wanted to admit that he wasn't healthy. But we saw what D'Amico Ryans did with him. We know what D'Amico Ryans' specialty is. We know that there's a lot of talent around him. And also, just like Dalton Schultz, Christian Harris is fighting for his NFL life. Final year of his rookie contract. If Christian Harris goes out there, quite frankly, if Christian Harris isn't healthy again, Texans maybe sign him to a 1-year deal, and he's just a 1-year deal guy. If he goes out there and performs, and let's say he performs like he did on the back end of the 2023 season, and let's say he does it while playing a large chunk of the games, guy's going to get paid. He might use the Texans to get paid, but the guy's going to get paid. D'Amico Ryans knows how to get the best out of defensive players, and we've actually seen it from Christian Harris. We didn't see Christian Harris go out there and play like trash. We just didn't see him at all. And now he's probably going to be healthy, and they're probably going to find the right spot for him. And they're going to work off of the Jalen Petrie situation. So this might not be penny stock like Dalton Schultz, but let's just call it nickel stock. Boom, give me 50 cents worth of the Christian Harris stock. I'll take that. Different expectations, but still a lot of talent. A lot of talent. There's not an example, and Team Player says it right. Christian Harris always performs when he's out there. We haven't seen Christian Harris play bad football. Just haven't seen it. So I'm buying the nickel Christian Harris stock, and I'm buying the penny Dalton Schultz stock. Still going to boom. Joe Mixon. Running backs, when they get older, we see the way that the league talks about and the way that the running back position is treated. It makes me effing sick. I hate it. I think in a perfect world, they find a way to complement Mixon. I still think that he gets a lot of use. I still think that you use Joe Mixon like a full 3-down back. Hopefully you get him involved in the pass game. But it would be nice if they could add someone to help him out a little bit. They really haven't done that. We don't know what Woody Marks is going to be. And I'm not including rookies in this conversation because we've been talking about rookies for months. I don't know what these rookies are going to look like. We're going to get our first look next week, and we'll plug them in. But Joe Mixon is getting to that age where running backs, at the snap of a finger, boom. It's a little different than the kicking thing that we previously discussed with Kyami Fairbairn, but it's kind of there. And it would be nice if they could find someone that every once in a while could help the man out a little bit. It's just kind of where it goes down there. I'm not betting against Joe Mixon, but I do think that's something to keep an eye on when it comes to bust. Far as not drafting a running back, I think the situation and the layout of the draft just made to where that wasn't quite what they wanted to do and what was in their best interest. The value was there at wide receiver. Hell, they like Woody Marks. They're treating Woody Marks like he's someone that's just going to come in and be able to immediately contribute in the pass game, which would be great. J.K. Dobbins is a name that comes up as someone that could maybe help. We saw him bring in Cam Akers last year. Are you buying Dameon Pierce stock? There's three rapid fan bases of players, and I don't know if they're existed. I don't know if they still exist or not. The Petrie is still there, and quite frankly, you should feel pretty good about what you've seen with Jalen Petrie. He has a strong following. He deserves it. I like Jalen Petrie. He deserves it. Then there's John Mechie. Is anyone buying John Mechie stock? You couldn't give me John Mechie stock right now on this team. I think John Mechie needs a different change of scenery. I don't see any path to John Mechie making this team in this situation. And he should be wanting to find him the best situation possible. But if I was walking into the mall or I was walking into the game and someone was outside handing out flyers and it said free John Mechie stock, I'm good. No, thank you. But there at times has been a nice little John Mechie following. A notch below the Petrie. Then there's the Dameon Pierce folk. Is Dameon Pierce folk still out there? Awesome rookie year. Year 2, by far the second best back on the team. We heard about how the system just didn't fit him. They brought in Joe Mixon. They actually seemed to trust Dare Ogunbowale more when it mattered. Pierce had a couple of long runs, and mop-up duty, or when Mixon wasn't on the field. But are people buying Dameon Pierce stock as far as being an RB2? I don't think there's too many people doing that. Now, Casario mentioned him as a kick returner. Is that the path for Dameon Pierce on this team? I don't know. It might be kind of similar to the Mechie thing. I know a lot of the film nerds don't like the tape when they watch what Dameon Pierce has put out the last few times. And he also, let's be honest, he really hasn't stayed healthy. And that's another problem when it comes to Dameon. So I don't know that there's any Pierce or Mechie stock buyers here, but you couldn't give it to me at this point. This is harsh, Luis. Dameon Pierce going to play for the Roughnecks next year. He probably would, though. He likes football enough. I don't think he's above just doing whatever he can to play some sort of football. But it's been tough for him. And let's be honest, when they drafted Dameon Pierce, he had never really carried a heavy workload. So that was really his rookie season, the most that he really carried the rock. So that's where that is on that. I have no problem with John Mechie. I just I don't think he fits in on this roster. I have no problem. I've talked to him a few times. I've enjoyed the conversations immensely. Extended interviews with John Mechie. I just don't think he's a productive player for this roster. There's nothing. I mean, do you? What do you like John Mechie on this roster? Lay that out for me. Tell me where John Mechie fits in, OO. I don't like his role on this team at this point. No, I have nothing against John Mechie. There's been times where we thought, okay, is there going to be a step up? Is it going to happen? And just hadn't happened. But there's nothing to not like about John Mechie, like personally, or from a play perspective. Like, tell me how it works. Who doesn't make the team? You got Nico, you got Kirk, you got Higgins, you got Noel, you got Watson. That's 5. Watson's on a 2-year deal. They like him. You got Berrios. You got Hutchinson, who Casario's talked good about. You got the 2 Johnson guys. Put John Mechie on the roster. I mean, if you just think I don't like him, lay it out for me. I'll give you the link. Hell, I'll let you talk. I'll put the camera on you. You can lay it out. There's no path to John Mechie. There's more of a path for Dameon Pierce. Like Dameon Pierce, right now on this depth chart, like Dameon Pierce has a puncher's chance. If camp started tomorrow, Dameon Pierce has a puncher's chance at being RB2. He has every opportunity in the world. There's a path for Petrie. Petrie's right there. All these other guys have paths. There's no path to John Mechie. Unless you can lay it out for me. That's just the reality of the situation. I think Higgins is going to be good. I'm starting to get more and more fascinated with Noel. I'm going to drop the Noel video tomorrow. We dropped the Higgins and the Ursery. Go check out the Ursery if you would like. Not as popular of a video, but just go check that out. Drop a like. These are just 8-minute get to know videos. Just take as much information as we can, lay it out, hear from the men themselves, leading up to rookie minicamp. We'll do it with every single rookie that they have. But yeah, I think Higgins is going to be good. I'm starting to get really sold on Noel as kind of the true slot guy, and a guy that they're that's going to provide CJ with something that he really hasn't had, which is just a true slot guy to where he can get rid of the rock early. So I still think Higgins is obviously the better player, but Noel, the more I hear about Noel, kind of impressive. Our scouts must be from Kansas or Missouri because we got a hella players this draft from the area. I know Ursery is definitely from there. Big Chiefs guy. Hell, they like Iowa State. They had a type. they definitely had a type. There's 18 colleges with multiple representations here. So they do end up getting types. For sure. Brandon says we're starting to look like the 2021 Bengals, and now wide receiver 2 is Higgins. I don't know that their defense was ever like elite though. The Texans' identity is defense. I mean, obviously the offensive line sucking is hard to deny, and it was very well publicized with the Bengals and the Texans, so I can see that. I think in some ways CJ and Burrow play alike at times, like stylistically. I think there are some times where they play alike. Joe Mixon obviously was the running back. I guess you could say Nico's Jamar Chase. Not as good, but kind of there. And then we don't know how good these wide receiver twos are yet. So we got to see if Higgins can perform like their Higgins. But I get what you're saying, and they were knocking on the door and damn near won a Super Bowl. For sure. I don't think Tank Dell plays football this year. We'll see. But I wouldn't count on Tank Dell playing football. I think he gets around the team, get his spirits up, do what he's got to do, and final year of his contract, gets an opportunity to try to make the squad. But I don't think that. Okay, yeah, Noel is from KC as well. Okay. Yeah, that is right. He's from KC. Higgins is from Florida. He was a really good basketball player in Florida. Davis Mills, boomer bust season for a potential bigger payday elsewhere. I think Davis Mills likes being the backup here. And I think he's a good backup. So I don't know that Davis Mills is like dying to start at this point. And I don't think anyone's dying for Davis Mills to start. So I could easily see a situation where Davis Mills is the backup for a long, long time. And he's a good backup. Really, really good backup. Oh, you're talking Mertz is from the Kansas City area too. Okay. Davis Mills is going to play his ass off in preseason. Yeah. Anytime Davis Mills is getting the start, I'm going to bet on the Texans in the preseason. Some people are like, why would you bet on the preseason? It all pays the same, brother. It all pays the same. If you got the inside info, get on that preseason. If you're looking at teams and you're like, okay, well, I think this guy's going to play, blah, 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 blah. Go ahead. Bet on preseason. There ain't no such thing as the inside, though. But if you like a quarterback and you're like, okay, this quarterback versus that quarterback, take it in the preseason. Why not? Makes it fun to watch. Davis Mills is living a good life. Davis Mills probably wasn't going to start at Stanford when he before he left. Well, they had all the COVID stuff, but he probably wasn't going to start at Stanford. There was a chance he wasn't. He got a chance to start for a couple of years. He held it down. And now he makes $5 million a year, hangs out, plays golf, doesn't get the shit beat out of him, and doesn't have to get crapped on by the fans. It's a good gig if you can get it. And he's also possesses like really good skills for a backup quarterback. You want your backup quarterback to be able to help you with the game plan. You want him to be a good resource for the quarterback. You want them not to be disgruntled and pissed off. And you want them to be capable of playing if they're called upon. And Davis Mills is all of that. If Davis Mills is your backup for 7-8 years, like however long. Now, obviously, if you have the chance to kick the tires on someone and they end up being really good and they have a little bit more upside, cool. I would anticipate there's a better chance of Davis Mills being the backup in 2 years and Mertz being out of the league than there is a chance of Mertz just like pushing Davis Mills and squeezing him out. Davis Mills is good. It goes back to the boomer bust stuff that we talked about with the expectations. His expectations are low. He's a good backup. He's not dying to play. It's not like he's going to get paid more to play. He's in Houston. He's chilling. He's hanging out. Sign me up for Davis Mills. El Lobo says Davis is respected by the team. He's a good partner for CJ and he has heart. He's also a very rich man. What's the problem? He just goes about his business. He's doing his thing. There's no problem with Davis. Brandon says it's still curious if Noel ends up being this year's Lab McConkey. Both had the exact same 40 time. Noel stronger though. I know where you saw this. You saw this with Steve and Sam. on their video talking about him. They titled it Next Lad McConkey. I saw that comp. The comps that he's getting are pretty exciting and intriguing. Christian Kirk is one of like the more common ones that you hear. And then there's the McConkey. And there's been a couple other comps, but those are the two most intriguing and exciting ones. But I did see them talking about Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey was a second-round pick, mainly slot. And Noel has that in common. Not buying British Brooks stock. I don't think there's a place for him. The fullback, I don't even know how long that would have lasted last year with British Brooks. Maybe he finds a place on special teams. Don't know. I don't know how they feel about the fullback. We don't know what system they're going to run. But I am not in on British Brooks stock. I was last year. But this year it's a little bit different. I don't anticipate much from him. If Noel is good, do we see Kirk on the field? Yes. Maybe at the same time. I asked Caserio about that, and we've seen it in New England and we've seen it in LA. They're not going to stop playing multiple slots, multiple receivers. They'll find stuff to do. And Caserio said they don't look at Kirk as just an inside guy. Mentioned his play at A&M in Arizona. So yeah, we see him on the field. That's a crazy question. Yeah, he's your WR2. And if they both play good, more power to him. But yeah, absolutely, we do. Brevin Jordan, I'm not buying the stock. Although he is in really good shape right now. I think the legend of Brevin Jordan kind of grew because of how bad the tight end position was. But I don't know what Nick Caley thinks about him, how he wants to use him. Maybe he's intrigued. His teammates love him. They love him. It's not like a massively guaranteed contract. But I'm not buying the stock. I've used all of my penny stocks at this point. Penny and nickel stock. I do think Kirk is wide receiver 2. Yes, I do. Over Higgins right now. Yes. As of right now. We'll see what they look like when they get to camp, but yes. The other thing that these rookies have, though, when you start talking about like on offense, not on defense, but on offense, I guess there's a little bit of head start by the veterans, but they really haven't put it to practice. So there's no head start that a wide receiver who was on the roster last year has over one of these rookies, or even a running back like Marks. As you look at kind of the cluster that the running backs are in, they haven't really played in the system. Now, Caserio did slip up and say, well, some of these guys have played in our system when it comes to the offensive line. Well, what is that? We don't know how Nick Caley's going to call plays. We don't know how he's going to line them up. Like the system, is he talking about New England? Is he talking about the Shanahan offspring? I don't know what that meant. It was a slip by Caserio, but if last year you take a rookie wide receiver, and they really didn't have a rookie wide receiver that was getting significant playing time. So we'll just say Diggs. Like you bring in Diggs, Tank Dell and Nico Collins have the advantage because they'd been in that system before. I don't think it mattered too much with a guy like Diggs, but in this situation, Noel, Higgins, the other guys they're competing with, Kirk, for playing time, there's no advantage in the system. We don't think. But that's the big mystery. We don't know what the hell this system is. Don't know. Brevin versus Lachey. I mean, I don't really think they're competing. I think Lachey has a chance, like his chance to make any noise and do anything where he's potentially active is going to be probably going to have to play some special teams and blocking. They ask you to do a hell of a lot of that at Iowa. Boring as hell to watch. Nothing worse than watching that Iowa on a Saturday. Sometimes when you wake up at 11 a.m., it's hard to stay awake with some of those Iowa. I mean, sometimes their team point total is 9 points sometimes, and that's in games they're favored. But they know about smash mouth football, and the Texans, when it comes to blocking, we'll see how Stover looks in year 2. And in a perfect world, they have Stover as their balanced guy who's receiving and blocking, their most complete tight end, but Lachey's kind of similar skill set to Stover. Stover's more explosive, but Lachey can block and Lachey can catch. It's not terrible. Not a lot of opportunity at Iowa. But I don't think he's competing with Brevin. I don't think Brevin's like a gadget guy, but I don't know. I don't know how he fits in this. That's the other thing for Brevin. And I guess this kind of sucks for him is, you know, you get hurt and you're focusing on getting your body right and getting back in the offense. And then you just kind of pick up where you left off when it comes to knowing the offense and knowing where to be and all that. Now it's completely different. Some guys don't react to the new system. Some guys react nicely. Some guys it doesn't phase. But that's a whole new element for Brevin Jordan. And quite frankly, when they signed Brevin Jordan to the extension, they didn't anticipate it was going to be a new system. Do they like him as much in this system? Because it's not like a massive financial commitment, but they liked him in the old system. And it seemed like they were trusting him a little bit more, and it seemed like they were trying to get him more involved, but that was before they hired their new offensive coordinator. So, like, does Nick Caley like Brevin Jordan as much? If he doesn't, then he's probably not on the team. I think there's a chance he does. I think there's some useful stuff you can do, but you get what I'm saying. Like when they signed him, it wasn't for this. So there'll be that. I'm intrigued to see what Cade Stover looks like when he returns. I think he's probably going to be much, 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 much stronger than he was. And he was never weak. I think the game was at times too fast for him, and he probably wasn't as strong as he probably should have been. But it'll be interesting to see what Cade Stover looks like when he comes back. Brevin Jordan is fast, and Brevin Jordan's fast because he's been a running back most of his life. That's what his background is. He's only been playing tight end since he went to Miami. He was more of kind of a running back type of guy in high school. So, yeah, when you see him put the Jets on, that's why. That's what his background is. So, there's a lot of boomer bust stock. What the hell are you buying? Let me know. I bought a few penny stocks. I bought a few nickel stocks. Buy, sell, and the most important one is I bought the CJ Stroud. I bought the CJ Stroud stock. Ain't getting rid of that. That ain't happening. I did see that San Francisco, and I think this is kind of Texans like, and I think D'Amico believes in this, and I think it probably has a lot to do with a Petrie decision. But I saw Mother Football put this up. Shireen Williams, she put it up on PFF, but the title is, let me pull this up. The title is that Nick Bosa and Trent Williams are at the 49ers offseason program to help teach the standard. That's the quote there. I think D'Amico believes very heavily in this. And he's kind of passively, aggressively said it a couple times. I don't even know if it's passive aggressive. I think it's just him saying what he likes and what he appreciates. But, you know, when he's talked about Petrie a couple of times, he's talked about how he was in the building and he he rehabbed in the building, and they really liked that. And you heard Stingley talk about how Nico Collins was in the building, and Nico Collins was someone that he looked to as an example, and he was going to be there no matter what, whether he got the contract, because that means a lot. And then it was kind of romanticized and mentioned a number of times that Derek Stingley was in the building lifting weights when he found out about his new contract. So you can kind of read between the lines and see that they value that. And when you had the Will Anderson awkward moment this week where he was asked about EJ Speed, it made you kind of wonder, well, was EJ Speed not there? Did Will think it was a weird rule or whatever? Like, they value that type of stuff, for better or worse. Some might say it's gimmicky. Like, guys can still get their work in. They don't have to be in the building, but they care. They care about it a lot. They care about it a hell of a lot. So does that impact whether they sign guys or extend them or trade them or whatever? I don't know. But they clearly value it. They've talked about it 100 times. But again, it goes back to this. It's all about the quarterback. And how much are you asking the quarterback to do? Are you asking him to do too much? There were times when Tom Brady won and he wasn't asked to do a ton. There were times where he was asked to do everything. Kind of goes up and down. But it's going to be all about the quarterback. And that is the most important stock. And I'm buying. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Reminder, like the damn video. The streams don't stop, baby. It's a little bit slow post-draft. But it's never really slow when it comes to SNL and the locker room with myself and Cody Stutes. We will hear from D'Amico next week. We'll get a look at the rookies. We'll give you like the overreactions from rookie minicamp. Some will be like, well, they're not doing anything. Well, we can find an observation or two. Spoiler alert, Lachey's a big mother trucker. That is definitely going to make a cameo. And then we'll see what they look like and how they look on the field. Appreciate y'all for coming through very, very much. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Aim in the headlock, localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do.